Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I am Jaina Alexander. I'm
And
Jaina
I,
Alexander. Go
what?
ahead.
Yep, we're live, folks.
Yeah.
Hi, I am April Sigman-Marx, and Jane and I are the founders of Thumbprint Studios, Chicago. And so TWID, this is a new thing. We found that there were so many amazing people in our industry that are doing some really cool stuff or have some amazing stories. And I know that I wanted to hear more about it and have talks with them. And then we thought there's probably other people out there who feel the same way. So TWID was born. So we're here with our tea, ready to chat with a really amazing woman, industry professional, about her story. Anything else about TWID? So this is going to be a more regular thing.
Yeah.
Jaina, where else can they watch this if they want to come back later?
Yeah. So if you aren't able to watch this now, or you can't stay for the whole half hour, which is approximately how long we'll be on here, we will be posting this to our blog on our website. I'll probably get around to posting it tomorrow. So it will be at www.thumbprintstudios.org/the-whirl, as in WHORL. And I will also link that in the comments of this live stream. So you will have that available for you there.
Excellent. So we're very excited tonight to have, well, tonight, depending on what part of the country you're in, Yamile Lima with us. Yamile is a Latinx middle school theater arts and language arts educator for Miami-Dade County Public Schools, which is one of the largest urban area schools in the United States. She holds her MS.Ed in Education and Social Change from the University of Miami and her B.F.A in Musical Theater Performance from New World School of the Arts Conservatory through the University of Florida, which is actually how Yami and I know each other. Her belief is that education as teachers, we need to integrate social justice and SEL practices within the classroom to assist in affecting change in society. As a teacher activist, Yami believes that you must assist the community to help bridge the gap between what is done within the schools that works and implement it within the community. As Paulo Freire, am I saying that correctly? Freire? I'm sure
I don't know. We'll have to double check with her when
we'll
she
have to
comes
double
on.
check with Yami. Stated, teaching is a political act. No pedagogy is neutral. So at this time, we'd like to welcome Yami to our screen here.
And the magic of technology. It is Paulo Freire, and he is a Brazilian theorist that we studied. We studied a lot of Brazilian theorists. There was a lot going on in Brazil when it came to education and transforming change. So.
Excellent. Awesome. Welcome. We are very excited to have you tonight.
I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. So before we get to the super hard-hitting questions and conversation here about social change and activism, I have a question to start us off with. What is your current obsession?
Obsession?
Yeah, your current obsession.
A current obsession, I mean, with COVID going on, you know, and Miami is like starting to open. I've been stuck to Netflix. Like I've been watching Netflix, and I've been watching, because I do voiceovers for Spanish telenovelas. So I've been watching Spanish telenovelas like on Netflix. And right now I'm hooked on a series called Velvet. And it's a series, yeah, it's based in the 1950s, and it's this like unrequited love, hero's journey, you know, where they're supposed to be together, they never get together, and I'm just always yelling at the camera. I mean, at the screen, you know, saying, "Why are you not together yet?" It's telenovela in Spain, so it's really good and it's cheesy, but I love it and I'm obsessed with it. So
That sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
it's
those
based off
of
like
you
the
out
fashion
there,
industry, so the fashion is really cool. So
ooh, fashion, unrequited love, or love, you know, issues. Ah, sounds fantastic. So everyone out there, make note. Velvet,
mm.
Netflix. So, so tell us about your journey. Because I know that you had shared with us previously that there, you know, were some experiences from your life that brought you to where you're at today. What was that journey like?
Wow, where do I start? I guess we'll start from the beginning. I feel like, you know, my parents are immigrants from Cuba. They came from Cuba because they wanted to get away from Castro's communist regime. And they settled, they met here and they settled in Homestead, Florida, which was literally like evenly distributed when it came to races and ethnicities. So it was like 33% Black, 33% Hispanic, and 33% white, and 1% Asian, because they had the Air Force Base nearby. So growing up down there, you know, being a Latina was a little difficult in the early or the late 70s, early 80s, because there were moments where I, you know, experienced some racism, or I felt, you know, I was affected by some racism. And it in the classroom as a student, and it really informed me on how, you know, I want to teach now. It happened to me, I feel like it also happened to me in my undergrad experience. I wrote a bilingual one-person show, and the notes from my professor at the time stated that it, you know, because it was bilingual and because I had propaganda in it, that I would not get the grade that I deserved. So I was like confused, because it was a, you know, a 30-minute one-person show. I wrote about a woman prisoner at the Guanajay prisons in Cuba, and it was historical fiction based on my mom, based on her involvement in like her counter-revolutionary like experience, you know, events that happened with our own family. And it was something that was from the heart, you know, and I felt that, and this was almost 20 years ago, when, you know, being Hispanic was not something that was in the spotlight. You know, I think now it's more acceptable. Now we see it in shows like, you know, on a lot of shows like Jane the Virgin, you know, One Day at a Time, like those shows where Hispanics are readily acceptable, and they use their code switching in the show, you know, to be able to be understood in our Latin way. So when I was doing this about 20 years ago, you know, it shocked me to hear that. I mean, to the point that even when I was preparing to leave our senior year, they asked me to anglicize my name. My whole life, I had to anglicize my name. My name is Yamile Lima. And so I would get, my name was pronounced Yamile, Yamile, Yamile. So for me, you know, and I didn't realize this until my program at the University of Miami, and I started looking into my biases and examining myself, and figuring out who I am because of the way that I was brought up. It really informed me on how just the way that someone's name is said, you know, and you're forced to assimilate to a society really, really affected me. you know, and I always wondered why I wasn't accepting of my Latin heritage as a young child. You know, I was always the rebel. I didn't want a quinceañera. I didn't want to, you know, have like the long hair. I didn't want to be, you know, super Latina. But now as I, you know, became an adult, I started to embrace it. I started to look for female role models. I started looking towards, you know, a Latina female role models. And to me, it's really, really important because now that I have a daughter, she's 9 years old, you know, it's really important for me to instill the fact that being a Latin woman, it's, you know, it's a very complicated dynamic, you know, and you have these cross streets of who you are, and it's difficult in white cisgender, you know, patriarchal society to make your way through it, you know. So yeah, so teaching theater right out of New World actually started letting me like help empower my students in accepting who they are. And for those students that were like shy or, you know, marginalized, or, you know, my classroom has always been a safe space, or I've tried to always make it a safe space. And, you know, I allow them a voice. I allow them to speak up, and, you know, and as my belief is, you know, language is power. So once they dominate the language, especially in the theater classroom, it's powerful for them.
I love that phrase, language is power. That's, I mean, incredible. And I mean, it seems like really so like, truthful, right? Like, you know, as far as like how we interact with the world, that with, you know, our language and the ability to communicate with one another is so important. What are some of the tools that you use in your classroom to help empower all of your students?
Well, I teach two types of subjects. I teach theater and I teach language arts. I infuse theater arts into the language arts curriculum. So I have them perform, I teach them how to script write, I teach them how to video, we reenact stuff. If they want to do gender role changes, I'm totally down with, you know, gender role changes, even in the theater classroom. Unfortunately, when it comes to competitions, there's a rule that, you know, you cannot gender swap in your competition pieces. So if you like the song, you know, Waving Through a Window from Dear Evan Hansen, and you're a girl and you want to sing it, you're not allowed to, because you are not a boy singing the song. So I usually, at the end of the school year, the last 9 weeks of the school year, since we're already over competitions, you know, we're like, all right, let's do musical theater and we're going to swap. You know, and it's funny because the guys come out and they sing the Schuyler Sisters, or they come out and they sing the Little Mermaid because they want to, you know, they want to wear a red wig and they want to be funny. And, you know, and we do it in the classroom and it's fun. You know, I do teach middle school, so a lot of them, you know, have the mentality of, you know, it's very different for them to deal with the topics of homosexuality, transgender. I do have transgender students. I do have, you know, LGBTQ students, and I have to make them aware. Listen, this is, they are people, and you must respect them. And, you know, if you feel uncomfortable, you can do a boy song, or you could do a scene, you know, where you're a boy or a girl, and if that's what you want to do, that's what you do. So, you know, I try to make it fun, but all inclusive. And that's one way that, you know, I tackle, you know, non-gender situations. You know, I have students that have introduced themselves as they, them. So we have to respect that. So what else do I do? Improvisation is really important, you know, like knowing their body and physicalizing it. I use Laban methods. I use vocal techniques. So, and Uta Hagen, you know, I integrate it, but I don't make it as complicated as it was for us. You know,
The middle school version of Uta Hagen.
Yeah, I'm like, Uta Hagen, okay, so we're breaking it into units. A unit is a thought. I try to, you know, I try to make it more pedestrian for them so that they understand the concepts. What else? If I have a student that has, their second language is not English and we're in the theater classroom, I will allow them to do their scene in their native language because, as I said, language is power. And if they feel the most comfortable, already as an actor, you have so many things going on in your head. You're trying to change, you know, you're trying to think, okay, what am I emoting? What's my super objective? What's my, you know, subtext? What am I doing? Where am I on the stage? Am I crossing down stage left? Am I looking profile right? You know, and so all of these little vocabulary words that are running through the young minds of 11 to 14-year-olds, they have to be able to synthesize it and then be able to speak. So if I layer that, right, with a language that they're not dominating because they just got here from another country, I'm going to set that student up to fail. And that is the last thing that I ever want to do to my student. I never want to make my student fail. I want them to feel successful in whatever they do. And since theater is universal and can be used in any part of the country, you know, I'm going to allow them to practice that skill in their native language. So, you know, it empowers them. It allows them to feel good about themselves. And I'm teaching them the skill. I'm teaching them the skill. And, you know, eventually when they do dominate the language, they'll be able to cross it over and they'll, you know, be even more hireable than anyone else. And I tell them, I'm like, you're 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. You leave my class, you can write up a resume, you can get a job. Tell you what. Mm-hmm. I've gotten kids jobs doing voiceovers, you know? So it's,
that's awesome.
I'm giving them tools to become independent people.
Yeah, and I think it's so awesome that you're opening those doors for them to speak in the language that they feel most comfortable, not only because, like you said, absolutely, that it's going to make them to take off that step of like having to synthesize from one language and translate to another, and then also act on top of that, make them feel more comfortable and to be able to bring themselves to the role. And then also to help even all of the other kids begin really honing in on how their body language is communicating and their body and the movement. I mean, it's something we've talked about before of like movement is a language and body is a language.
Yeah.
And empowering that.
Yeah. Even in Theater the Oppressed, like one of the exercises is, you know, a movement exercise where the audience, you know, participates and suggests, just like in an improvisation. And they're suggesting, okay, well, this is the situation, but you can't speak, you know, how do you express it, right? So, you know, you have to figure it out and you have to use your body movement to get, you know, through the exercise. And then, you know, did you do it correctly? You know, so yeah, movement is extremely important.
How do you find that your students are reacting to that exercise and having a tool that we often rely on being removed from the situation?
Yeah, well, now the fact that we're going virtual is really interesting. You know, today we were improvising and it was, they couldn't physicalize it, you know? Like I actually had yesterday, my students, I had a group of 4 of them that physicalized it. They pushed their chairs out of the way, they got up and they were like pointing at the different areas of the screen, and they were totally, you know, trying to do what they did in the regular classroom. This year with my beginning students, however, it's a little bit more difficult. So it's more like they're interpreting it through dialogue and how they're delivering the lines, and they're listening, and they're making sure that their intonations are there, and that they're clearly speaking so that the other person understands them. So in the virtual world, it's gotten a little more difficult. I mean, my older students that have been with me for a couple years, they're throwing chairs around and moving, you know. So the good thing is that they're combined with the younger students, with my first year students, and they see that, you know, and they copy it and they reciprocate, and you know, they do it. So they'll get out of their shell eventually.
Yeah, I think that's probably something many educators out there are experiencing right now, especially in an arts realm, of like, what is acceptable, what's okay on Zoom, and when can I let go and allow that spontaneity and curiosity to come out. So it's awesome that you're utilizing older students to help guide the younger ones.
Yeah, I usually partner them. Like today, I noticed like the new kids didn't want to. They didn't want to participate. So I was like, okay, someone who wants to go. And then of course it's the, you know, the drama 2 and 3 kids. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to pair you up with a newbie. So, you know, I'd pair them up, and then they'd play off of each other, and they felt more comfortable. So, you know, yeah. It's nice.
How do you use theater of the oppressed in your English language classes?
Well, it's the same thing. Like if they, for instance, we read Midsummer Night's Dream last year, and I had them videotape it. And I'm like, look, if you want to interpret it and you want to do it like Miami style, go for it. So they, you know, they're exploring, they're using the space. I work on Miami Beach. Some of these kids' homes are ridiculous. And I mean, I've seen parts of Miami Beach that I've never seen before, because they're like in private areas, you know, and I get to go into their homes through video, you know, and like one time they did it like chonga style, you know, and chongas in Miami are like the girls with the big hoops, and, you know, like the exaggerated stereotype of, you know, what a Cuban girl in Miami is. So which is funny because it was one of, you know, my my Caucasian students that was doing it, which she loves doing like accents. So she was exploring. She's like, look, this is the community I'm growing up in, so I'm gonna explore it and let's try it. So physicality, exploring your body, you know, using the audience to create the scene, that's all Boal, you know, and just the fact that I allow them to perform and be creative and flip the classroom, you know, and I'm like, you're going to teach me today, so this is the project, these are my expectations, then you guys present and you teach me, you know. So, and some of the stuff that they come up with is just like, it's phenomenal, you know. I mean, just like even like I have some, like in language arts we do Socratic seminars when we're reading novels, and then I have them do their projects after, and those Socratic seminars, they're discussing the book. I'm only there as like the peacekeeper, and it's all student led, you know. The more the student has anonymity in the classroom, the more empowered that they are. And that's what I'm trying to teach my lower performing students, you know, to do. And it's difficult for them to grasp that because they are used to the banking system, and the banking system is a theory where, again, Freire, says that the banking system is, you know, in the bank, you put in the information, right?
Mm-hmm.
You put in the cash,
Yeah.
then you take it out, right? So a traditional classroom setting, it uses the banking system. We feed you the information, you regurgitate the information. That's not where we need to be right now, right? We got to flip the script on them. So either in the classroom or the language arts classroom, you know, giving them more freedom and anonymity is key.
So what are some other ways that you can work against the banking system or other systems that are out there?
Well, in the theater classroom, it's making sure that we allow the students to pick the material that they want to put on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
I usually buy a bunch of scripts at the end of the school year, and then at the beginning of the school year, start to hand them out. And I'm like, all right, pick the one act. Pick the one act. What are we doing? And then usually, because they're so socially aware of what is happening in society, they pick something that is really, really important to them. A couple years ago, we took a one act called Perfect, which was about a girl. It's like a memory play where she started at like an elementary school, and then grew up to a teenager. And throughout the whole process, she was becoming insecure because of what her friends would tell her, even though her mommy and daddy were always telling her, you can do anything, you're beautiful, you know. She always had these doubts because of what other people imposed on her. And, you know, you could see insecurities, depression, and throughout like breakups, how it affected her. And it really called out to my students. And it was a group of girls that were reading the script, and they, you know, they chose it because they felt that it was a message that was necessary to tell the school. So,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like you're doing a lot of empowering your students to you know, grab a hold of their education, to be more inclusive, to be activists, and to speak out about the issues that are really important to them.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and that goes for anything, whether it's climate change, BLM, you know, depression, LGBTQIA, you know, whatever that is, I feel that they need to speak up about it. And I either empower them by teaching them how to write, how to read, or how to speak. And that's it. And I integrate it all in all of my classes. Doesn't matter what subject it is.
It's amazing. Out there influencing the future.
Yeah. Yeah. Every little mind is, you know, is there to be molded and guided. They need a lot of guidance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if someone wanted to read about some of these theories and ideas and methodologies, do you have any books that you would recommend?
I have a ton of them.
So just take us over to your library.
Yeah.
You know.
So the one that I recommended that you posted was Radical Possibilities by Jean Anion. This is a like it's a lot to chew on because it talks about economics, and then it talks about federal policies and poverty, and then it talks about so it goes from the micro to the macro of society and what is, you know, how society is structured and where it's broken and fallen apart and how it's failed our urban schools. Jean Anion is an educator and a theorist and an activist. And this is an excellent book. Again, you also have Augusto Boal for Theater of the Oppressed. He also came out of the, I believe, the Brazilian movement that was happening with immigrants and migrant workers, and he wanted to empower them with language. Same with Paulo Freire. Anything by Paulo Freire, you know, is good as well. This is good as well. Good also. They have SEL. I don't know if you can see it. This one is Everyday SEL for the middle school classroom. They have an elementary version and a high school version as well, and that's by Carla Tantillo Filibert. And then this one is really good. This is a workbook called Reading, Writing, and Rising Up, and that's by Linda Christensen, and it's teaching about social justice and the power of the written word. And it's funny because there's an exercise about names, which we discussed last time, because you're like, well, what do you want us to call you? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm still confused. And it's about, you know, they talk about in the book, which is the book, The House on Mango Street, that was written by Sandra Cisnero. And she talks about her name and where it came from and the importance of it. And there's a whole poem exercise in there for students to empower themselves about their names. So, you know, yeah. So those are my
Very
books.
cool.
And yeah, your favorites. So we will post, in case you know, if it went too fast or you missed it, don't worry. We will post these books, these recommendations in the, with the vlog when we post it on our website so that everyone can get a chance to get their hands on these books. I do have to say there is one thing I'm a little embarrassed. I don't know what SEL means. Can you fill me in?
I am so sorry. It's social emotional learning in the classroom. So because of the fact that there are so many students out there that are suffering with mental disabilities, depression, bipolar disorders, I have students that have been sent, you know, to the hospital because they're hurting themselves. They're attempting suicide. I have students that are highly medicated. There's a law that was mandated, federal law that was mandated to incorporate social emotional learning in the classroom. And the wonderful thing about our district is that our language arts curriculum has it embedded in the classroom already. Because of the fact that we do deal with so many cross-cultural topics and characters, and it has you as a teacher ask, like, what, you know, how do you relate to this student? What do you think this character, where, you know, what do you think they're going through? Which is stuff we do already in theater, you know. I think, you know, theater is great because you get to analyze other characters, you know, in extreme situations, which is the same for writing. And starting to ask those questions, hey, what do you think this person's going through? And have you ever gone through something like this? And, you know, how do you relate to it? Opens them up to, you know, either open conversation about situations that are happening at home, whether it's in classroom or privately with you. They confide in you more. The great thing about this book is that they're literally scripted activities that you use to be able to guide your classroom through writing activities, games. I mean, there's even theater games. I mentioned there were viola spolling games in this activity. So in this activity book. So I truly do highly recommend, you know, this if you're a classroom teacher. And they're simple to implement. They take 3 to 5 minutes. You could do them as bell ringers, and assist your students in becoming better people. That's it.
Thank you for that explanation. Helps me to grasp and understand a little more. And I wish that we could talk for 30 more minutes, but we are already running over a little bit on our time. Blast. But if there was one thing that you could leave everyone with today, what would that be?
Understand that children are people too. even if they're, even if they're in high school, we kind of make them grown up before they are, and they're not, they're still babies, but they do have a voice and they do have something to say, and we should listen to them. Especially, for instance, like the climate change activists that have emerged during these last, in the last year, they're children that are worried about their lives, the BLM movement. These kids are trying to survive in a situation where, you hold a plastic gun, like, and you get shot. Like, I can't even use a plastic gun in my performances because it's against the rules. We're not supposed to, we're not allowed to. It's a very sensitive topic. So listen to your children. They're people too.
An incredible message, an important message to listen.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yami, thank you so much for taking time to be here and to tell us your story and the work that you're doing, to share all of that with all of us. Thank you for saying yes and for being the brave woman to go, yep, I'll be first. Yep, I'll be the first to do this thing with you that you're trying to figure out. So just all the gratitude for being here today.
Of course, you're welcome anytime. I mean, I'm so glad that after all these years, even though this pandemic is something that is a worldwide crisis, it has opened up so many avenues and has brought me back to people that I haven't seen in forever. So it's a good thing. It's a positive thing, even though, we always have to look at the silver lining. So I'm blessed and grateful that you invited me here. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
It has been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
And, thank you to all of you who tuned in to have tea with us, to have tea with Yamile Lima and with Thumbprint Studios. And until next time.
Bye.
Bye.